I think he's gorgeous. I think he's absolutely gorgeous. I think he's got the, although he's fair.
Shirley Eaton became famous overnight as the Golden Girl in 1964. 5 years later, she vanished from Hollywood forever. She was only 32 years old. Studios offered her huge contracts. She turned them all down. People started whispering about what really happened. Some believed she died from the gold paint. Others thought she was hiding a terrible secret. The truth was darker than anyone imagined. What made a rising star walk away from millions? The answer reveals Hollywood's cruelest side. Shirley finally told her story decades later. Shirley Jean Eaton was born on January 12, 1937, at Edgware General Hospital in Middlesex. She grew up in Kingsbury, a quiet part of northwest London. As a little girl, she went to Row Green Primary School, but her life started changing fast when she got into the Ada Foster Theatre School. It wasn't a normal school. It trained young kids to act, sing, and move like professionals. While others studied math or science, Shirley learned how to walk with grace, speak clearly, and hold the spotlight. She stayed there until she was 16. Every day was strict, full of rehearsals and discipline, but it shaped her. It gave her focus, direction, and something to believe in. Her first moment on stage came when she was just 12. She performed in Benjamin Britten's Let's Make an Opera in 1949, long before most kids even think about careers. A year later, in 1950, she appeared on the BBC show For the Children, which tied back to the same opera. By the time she was 13, she was already balancing real work with her training. In 1951, she landed a role named Anne Pebble in a 6-episode series called Parent Craft. While most teens were still daydreaming about their future, Shirley was already living hers. In 1953, at just 16, she stepped into the world of theater with a bold heart. She had her West End debut in a play called Going to Town. She was making only $5 a week, barely enough to cover her train fare. Sometimes she skipped meals and walked long distances just to make it to rehearsals. The pressure was real. She was still a teenager, but producers were already trying to push her into glamorous roles. Some of them hinted at things no girl her age should have to face. But Shirley didn't give up. She stood her ground and kept working. By 1954, she was performing late-night variety shows, sometimes staying on her feet until midnight. She once nearly collapsed from exhaustion. The industry didn't care how young you were. You either made it or you disappeared. That same year, 1954, things got bigger. At 17, she signed with the Rank Organization, one of the most powerful film studios in Britain. On the outside, it looked like a dream come true. They trained her in everything: speech, posture, how to walk into a room like a star. But behind closed doors, it was cruel. She was pushed into glamour photo shoots that made her deeply uncomfortable. Studio bosses didn't care. If she refused, they threatened to cancel her contract. One photo shoot in 1955 lasted 10 hours. She left crying. She once told a friend she felt like a piece of meat. She wasn't alone. Other actresses like Diana Dors faced the same thing. Shirley stayed quiet and kept going, hoping better roles would come. Her first real movie was Three Men in a Boat in 1956. She played Sophie Clutterbuck, a charming young woman who brought humor and brightness to the screen. People loved her, but she made only $100, while the men she acted with earned thousands. That's how it was in those days. If you were a woman, your talent came second. She still gave it her all. In 1957, she starred in Doctor at Large with Dirk Bogarde. She played a nurse named Nan in a funny hospital story. During filming, a fake explosion went wrong. Shirley lost her hearing for a short time. There was no safety gear. No one warned her. That was the risk. But she didn't complain. She kept filming. Her rise continued. In 1956, she starred in a wild comedy called Sailor Beware, where she played a young woman tangled in a chaotic wedding story. It made people laugh, but the role trapped her in the image of a dumb blonde. She turned down over a dozen scripts in the next 2 years because she didn't want to be treated like decoration. Some roles even paid less just because she was blonde. She knew what that meant, but she kept saying no, even if it hurt her career. In 1957, she acted in Date with Disaster, a low-budget crime film. She played the girlfriend of a car salesman caught in a heist. The role demanded real stunts, and she had to do them herself. During one chase scene, a car flipped. Shirley was inside. She got bruised ribs and had to be hospitalized. There were no medics on set, no insurance, just pain and fear. But she came back and finished the movie. In 1958, she was cast in Further Up the Creek, another comedy. This time, she worked alongside Peter Sellers. The film was silly and fun, but what happened off-camera was not. A producer told her she could get better parts if she did certain favors. She was disgusted. She refused and risked being blacklisted. Peter Sellers later defended her in his memoirs, writing about how common this behavior was. That moment stayed with her. It was one of many reasons she started thinking about leaving the spotlight. But before all that, she had also worked in radio. In 1956, she joined the BBC's Mrs. Dale's Diary, one of the most popular shows of the time. Her first live performance was a disaster. She froze for 10 full seconds. Millions of people were listening. Letters poured in, making fun of her mistake. But she didn't quit. She went back, trained harder, learned to control her voice, and soon became a regular. The same year, she almost represented the UK in the Eurovision Song Contest. Her confidence was growing again. In 1955, she had also toured across the UK in a musical called The Pajama Game. She was only 18, performing 200 shows in 50 different cities. She barely slept. She lived off cheap sandwiches. Once in Manchester, she fell during a performance. A faulty ladder sent her crashing to the ground. She needed 8 stitches in her knee. But instead of resting, she took painkillers and went back on stage. All these moments added up. From a child on a London stage in 1949 to a star battling injustice in 1958, Shirley Eaton lived through the glamour and the dark side of show business. She had talent, courage, and a quiet fire that refused to go out. Shirley Eaton's rise in British cinema wasn't smooth or glamorous behind the scenes. When she joined the Carry On series in 1959 with Carry On Nurse, she had no idea it would become the UK's highest-grossing film that year. Over 10 million people watched it, and it even made more than $2 million in the United States. But behind that success was a hard reality. The budget was only £71,000. Filming lasted from November 3rd to December 12th, 1958, and days ran 12 hours long with no overtime. Despite the huge profits, Shirley was paid a flat fee and got no share of the earnings. She later spoke about how exhausted she felt and how little care was given to the actors, even though her role as Nurse Dorothy Denton made her a household name. Just a year later, in 1960, she appeared in Carry On Constable as Sally Barry. One scene took an unexpected turn when her skirt tore open during a chase, revealing more than planned. The director decided to leave the scene in the final cut, making it the first time nudity appeared in the series. The budget had only slightly improved to £82,000. Shirley had to work 10-hour days while many of the cast were sick with the flu. At one point, she fell and actually sprained her wrist during a take. It wasn't in the script, but it stayed in the film. Years later, in a 2014 interview, she said how embarrassed she was by the wardrobe accident, but the producers found it funny. The public loved the cheeky tone, and the film did very well. In 1959's Carry On Teacher, Shirley played Felicity Wheeler, a serious headmistress. But what happened during filming wasn't funny at all. The set used untrained dogs, and she was bitten 3 times during shooting. One bite on her leg was so bad it needed stitches. On July 15, 1959, one dog nearly mauled her during a take, stopping filming for 2 hours. Still, she kept going and delivered her lines, even while in pain. That year, over 8 million people watched the movie. But Shirley left the set with real scars, both physical and emotional. The tight budget of £78,000 didn't allow for proper animal trainers, and she was forced to act through the danger. In Carry On Regardless from 1961, she played different characters in small stories. One scene had her fall from a ladder, twisting her ankle badly on April 10, 1961. It was only day 14 of the shoot. The producers didn't stop filming. They didn't even have a medical team. Shirley had to keep acting, even with a limp. They worked through her pain and even added the limp into the comedy. About 7.2 million people watched the film, and fans admired her flexibility. But Shirley became more and more frustrated with how little the series cared for the actor's health. Even when they offered her £500 more for each movie, it didn't feel worth it anymore. In 1960, she acted in Life is a Circus with the Crazy Gang. It was supposed to be light and fun, full of singing and musical numbers, but the British Board of Film Censors didn't like the lyrics and demanded changes. In July 1960, scenes had to be reshot, which delayed the film and added £5,000 to the budget. Shirley, only 23 then, had to re-record her songs while exhausted. Some theaters even refused to show the film. It still managed to earn £150,000, but Shirley walked away from musicals feeling drained and disheartened. In 1957, she starred in The Naked Truth, a dark comedy about celebrity blackmail. Her role included posing for fake scandalous photos, and it shocked audiences at the time. The Catholic Legion of Decency protested loudly, standing outside 45 theaters in London during its October release. They handed out 10,000 flyers, calling the film immoral. Shirley was just 20 then, and she received over 200 angry letters accusing her of indecency. The film still earned £200,000 and pushed her career forward, but in a 2014 interview, she admitted those scenes left her feeling exposed and vulnerable. She had filmed them with only a tiny crew to make her feel safe, but the judgment was overwhelming. It even led to questions in Parliament. In 1961's What a Carve Up, Shirley played Linda Dixon in a spooky story set in a cold old mansion. Filming started in January during a terrible cold snap, and the building had no heating. Temperatures dropped to -5 degrees Celsius. She wore thin costumes during 12-hour days and fainted twice from the cold. Filming paused for 3 days because of heavy snow, which cost the production £8,000. Even the fake cobwebs used on set gave her allergic reactions. Although the movie became a cult favorite, Shirley never forgot how harsh those 6 weeks were. In 1963, she acted in The Girl Hunters with Mickey Spillane. He played the main role and was also the author of the story. In one scene, they were supposed to fight, but Mickey improvised and ended up hitting her harder than expected. She got real bruises on her arms during a shoot in March 1963 at Elstree Studios. It took 15 takes to finish that one scene. Shirley was 26 at the time, and she later said it was terrifying. The film made about $1.2 million, and her intense scenes led to rumors of a romance with Spillane, which she denied. The experience made her cautious about choosing future roles. One of the most dangerous projects she ever did was Rhino in 1964. It was shot in Kenya, deep in the wild, with a storyline about animal conservation. During filming in August 1963, she was bitten by mosquitoes and caught malaria. The fever reached 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and she spent 10 days in a hospital in Nairobi. The heat reached 35 degrees Celsius, and the illness delayed filming by 2 weeks, adding $20,000 to the cost. She lost 15 pounds and almost quit acting altogether. A cameraman was even injured when a rhino charged at the crew. In her 1999 autobiography, she described hallucinating from the treatment and how the whole experience made her want to focus on her family instead. That's one of the reasons she retired in 1969. That same year, she was cast as Jill Masterson in Goldfinger, one of the most iconic Bond girls. But the role came to her only because Joan Collins turned it down. Collins later said in a 2013 interview that she regretted refusing the part. She had chosen to focus on her baby, born in 1965. Shirley had no idea about this twist until many years later. Her performance made film history, especially the famous gold-painted scene. She sat still for 2 hours while makeup artists covered her body in gold paint. At the time, people believed the myth that if your whole body was painted, you could suffocate. To stay safe, the crew left a small patch on her stomach unpainted and had a doctor on standby. Shirley wore very little and had to lie on a cushion while they shot the scene. Even though she got the flu and had to sit through multiple Turkish baths to clean the paint off, she stayed professional. But the myth that she died from the paint spread for years. After the film's release, the rumors exploded. Some believed she had died during filming and that the studio had covered it up. Others thought she had vanished because she retired in 1969. In truth, she lived a long life and appeared on Mythbusters in 2003 to prove the rumor wrong. She said the paint didn't kill her. She had a doctor there and survived the experience, even though it was uncomfortable. The story refused to die, even as late as 2018, when BBC and YouTube videos still had to explain the truth. But another shock came at the movie's premiere. Shirley discovered her voice had been replaced. The studio had secretly dubbed her lines with another woman's voice. That woman was Nikki van der Zyl, who had dubbed several Bond girls before. Shirley had no idea. It embarrassed her deeply. Nikki was even banned from a 1964 event, so Shirley wouldn't find out. The voice replacement led to bad feelings that lasted for years. Nikki wasn't even credited. Her husband once said Bond girls were just seen as eye candy with no voice of their own. Shirley later admitted she was stunned and disappointed. Even though her part in Goldfinger was small, the role defined her public image. She appeared on the cover of Life magazine in November 1964, covered in gold paint again. But the process took a toll. She had caught the flu and had to sit in steam rooms and baths for hours to remove the paint from her body. In interviews, she said it felt very uncomfortable. After that, she did only 8 more films and left Hollywood in 1969 to raise her family. Even though she became a symbol of beauty and fame, Shirley Eaton's career was filled with pain, danger, and moments that haunted her long after the cameras stopped rolling. After Shirley Eaton became world famous for her unforgettable gold-painted death scene in Goldfinger in 1964, many thought she had reached the peak of her career. But just 1 year later, in 1965, she stepped into something much darker. She joined the film 10 Little Indians, a chilling mystery based on an Agatha Christie novel. It was shot in the freezing Wicklow Mountains of Ireland, and the weather there was brutal. From February to April, the cast battled snowstorms, icy winds, and temperatures that dropped to -5 degrees at night. Shirley got pneumonia after filming one of the outdoor scenes and had to stay in the hospital for 10 days. The shoot had to be paused for a week. Even her co-star Fabian got sick, and 3 cameras broke from the cold. It felt like the film itself was cursed. Shirley later said the freezing nightmare almost made her quit acting forever. In 1966, she took on a new kind of danger in Around the World Under the Sea. She played a marine biologist working on a nuclear submarine. One underwater scene went horribly wrong. Her scuba gear failed while she was 150 feet deep in the ocean. For more than 30 seconds, she couldn't breathe, and her mask filled with seawater. She started panicking and almost drowned. David McCallum, her co-star, rushed to her side and helped her back to the surface. She spent 2 days recovering from lung damage. The faulty diving gear came from a real sub that had been built back in 1956. Even though Shirley had trained for 40 hours before filming, nothing could have prepared her for how close she came to death that day. In 1967, Shirley changed roles completely. She became a powerful villain in The Million Eyes of Sumeru. She trained 5 hours a day for 3 weeks to learn how to fight for the movie. But during one intense scene, a stunt performer accidentally kicked her hand. Her right index finger broke badly, and the bone even came through the skin. There was no real medical help on set, so they just taped it up and kept filming for another 12 hours. The injury got infected and needed surgery when she returned to the UK. Her finger never healed properly. She said the pain was almost unbearable, but she kept going anyway. In 1969, she played Sumeru again in The Girl from Rio. The movie was filmed in Brazil during the wild carnival season. Temperatures reached 35 degrees, and the days were long and exhausting. Paparazzi wouldn't leave her alone. Sometimes 50 of them gathered outside the set. One even climbed a wall just to take photos of her while she was changing clothes. She once slapped a reporter who touched her without permission. That slap led to a short arrest and a fine, which the producer paid for her. Drones were used to spy on her, and photos were sold to tabloids. Shirley was deeply disturbed by all this. After the movie ended, she flew home and decided she was done with acting. She was only 33 years old, but the stress and the separation from her young sons had become too much. Back in 1966, she had already started turning down Hollywood offers. One of them was from MGM. They offered her $100,000 for a nude scene in The Scorpio Letters, which was 3 times her usual pay. She said no. She didn't want to be seen only as a sex symbol. In 1967, she turned down another movie with Sean Connery for the same reason. Between 1964 and 1969, she rejected over 20 roles. She wanted to be remembered for her talent, not her body. She chose to be with her family instead. Her decision shocked many in the industry. Some said she was crazy to walk away from fame, but she didn't care. Her children meant more. Shirley married Colin Lenton Rowe on August 3, 1957. They met in 1956 on a film set and quickly fell in love. They stayed together for 37 years until Colin suddenly passed away from a heart attack on June 15, 1994. He was 62. Shirley was 58. She later found out he had hidden health problems like high cholesterol. His death pushed her into a deep sadness, and she went to therapy in 1995. She spent £2,000 on treatment. She scattered his ashes in Cannes, where they had lived since 1972. He had always supported her choice to retire from fame. She even turned down a $50,000 movie offer in 1990 just to be by his side. In 1970, to protect her sons Grant and Jason from the media, she homeschooled them for 2 years. They used a £1,000 study program in their Cannes home. She stayed away from the public so much that in 1975, people began spreading false rumors that she had died from the gold paint in Goldfinger. A poll in 1980 showed that 10% of Bond fans believed the lie. She laughed at the story, but the constant hiding gave her anxiety. She had a panic attack in 1976 and finally enrolled her kids in a small French school. Even then, stalkers kept bothering her. In 1978, an intruder broke into her home. After that, she hired a security guard for £3,000. Tabloids kept publishing lies. In 1982, one even claimed she had faked her death to collect £100,000 in insurance money. In 1999, she appeared at a London event just to show people she was still alive. She had moved to Cannes in 1972, buying a seaside villa for £200,000. She wanted peace, but it didn't last. One stalker from America sent her over 200 letters and even tried to break in during 1975. It took a £5,000 police investigation to catch him. In 1980, another man offered £10,000 for nude pictures of her. She installed alarms that cost £1,500. Still, she stayed in France and learned the language. She hosted garden parties and sent her sons to top schools. But the obsession with her Bond image never ended. In 1990, someone even wrote "Eternally Gold" on her car. She wrote in a blog in 2014 that she had spent 50 hours in therapy to recover from all the fear. Even with all that, she still refused to come back to acting. In 1975, she turned down a Bond role worth $150,000. In 1982, she said no to a TV deal for $200,000. She kept a simple life. Every year, her family visited Devon in the UK. They hiked and had picnics with homemade scones. That tradition started in 1970 and stayed strong. In 1990, she was offered a Broadway play for $50,000 a week. She refused because she didn't want to miss her son Jason's school play. By 1995, she had turned down over £1 million in offers. Some people said Hollywood blacklisted her, but she didn't mind. She was too busy baking cookies for charity and watching her sons grow. Grant became an engineer, making £80,000 a year. Jason became a teacher. Her sacrifices paid off. In 1999, she released her book, Golden Girl. It had 208 pages and revealed the truth behind her gold-painted scene. She said the makeup only stayed on her for 5 minutes, but the shoots lasted 12 hours. She earned just £2,000, while Sean Connery got $50,000. The book sold 50,000 copies in 1 year. Fans saw a side of her they never knew. She explained why she left fame behind. The stories felt raw and honest. In the 2000s, she became an artist. She made over 100 sculptures and paintings, using memories from her travels to 15 countries. Some pieces sold for £5,000. But in 2010, her home studio was robbed. Thieves broke in and stole 12 artworks worth £50,000. The alarm had been broken for weeks. The crime took less than 10 minutes. Only 2 pieces were ever found. It shook her badly. She became more fearful of the outside world. In 2002, she appeared in the documentary Bond Girls Are Forever. She shared stories of being treated unfairly in the 1960s. While Connery made £50,000 for Goldfinger, she made just 2. Producers pressured her into nude scenes. She refused them all. She was harassed on 10 different sets. The documentary sold $1 million in DVDs and aired on TV. Her voice stood out. She talked about how men got paid for Bond residuals, and women didn't. This made many people rethink the past. In 2015, she published another book, Her Reflections. It had 200 photos from her life, including behind-the-scenes moments from the 1960s. The book sold 10,000 copies, but in March 2018, she got very sick with pneumonia. She was 81. Her lung function dropped by 40%. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks. Doctors believed it might have been caused by the gold paint from 1964. She recovered but faced another scare in 2020 during COVID. She stayed strong and later donated her photos to the National Portrait Gallery. When Sean Connery passed away in 2020 at age 90, Shirley Eaton became the last surviving main cast member from Goldfinger. She was 88 in 2025. Looking back, she said she wished she had asked for a better contract. The film made over $125 million back then, which is over $1 billion today. She could have earned $500,000 in residuals, but got nothing. She shared stories about the wild parties during filming and the loneliness she felt as a young mother. Fans started petitions in 2022 to honor her. She gave away her Bond memorabilia to raise £10,000 for charity. Her story is not just about fame. It's about choices, survival, and the hidden cost of being golden.